Hello to all my friends at Yorkshire.com. My name is Phil Grabsky. I'm the executive producer of Exhibition on Screen and the director in 2016 of a film about David Hockney, based on two exhibitions that were at the Royal Academy in 2012 and 2016. I am a great lover of Yorkshire and recently made time to run the Dales Way, and it was absolutely staggering. I can't wait to get back. And I understand a little bit more about David Hockney by exploring Yorkshire a little bit, and I have done before. David Hockney was a man of Yorkshire, and I don't think that ever truly left him. While he went to London to study at the Royal College and then went to New York and the west coast of the United States, I think it is relevant and interesting that he returned in later life to his sister's house, in fact, in Yorkshire, where he produced, I think, some of his most interesting and beautiful artworks, which were the artworks that formed the 2012 exhibition. I think, although he's known as being one of Britain's great portraitists, for me, actually, I think he's one of our greatest 20th and early 21st century landscape artists. I don't think it's any coincidence that he ended up in Normandy, creating towards the end of his life, again, landscapes. He said, I believe, that he went there to teach the French how to paint Normandy, which is quite an assertion when you think back to artists like Monet and many others that travelled out of Paris and elsewhere to Normandy to paint at the end of the 19th century. So Hockney was bold in taking them on. I remember making a film called I, Claude Monet, which was based just on the letters of Monet. Fascinating film. He's a truly magnificent artist, but he spent a lot of time in Normandy, Rouen, Étretat, places like this. So he knew the value of the Normandy countryside, as did David Hockney. David Hockney actually died on my birthday, 11th of June this year, aged 88. And I think what is most significant for me about David Hockney and what I take as a creative person is that he was passionate about art. And it's an overused word perhaps, but he was genuinely passionate. When he was a young man, somebody said to him, look, if you want to be an artist, you're going to have to work hard. And he responded by saying, oh, I'm going to work hard. And, you know, there's obviously stories about his lifestyle and this, that, and the other. That happens with all contemporary artists, really. But in my experience of working with living artists, what you must never forget is that they are fully committed to get to where they've become, to get to where they have arrived at. They have worked extraordinarily hard. They're looking at everything. They're learning from the past. They're learning from their contemporaries. And their ambition in life is really not to be rich and famous and all the rest of it. Their ambition in life is to be the best artist that they can be. And David Hockney could have rested on his laurels, but he's constantly engaging with new technologies, for example, Polaroids, the iPad, and other things. And he's exploring the 2016 and the 2012 exhibitions at the Royal Academy, which form the backbone of our film, are examples of him trying out new things. The portraits, which formed the 2016 exhibition, he set himself a goal, if you like, of painting multiple portraits, but taking no more than 3 days. Now, 3 days is still quite a lot for somebody to give. I would find it hard to find 3 days in my schedule. But when, again, you think back to people like Whistler, we're currently making so it's going to be a super film about Whistler. Sometimes people stood for him for 72 sessions. It could take weeks. It's outrageous, really. Hockney said, no, maximum 3 days. And I will try to capture you as best I can. His joie de vivre is motivational to any creative person to this day. And of course, he explored technology. He looked deep into technologies. He had a theory, for example, which I don't personally subscribe to, but he had a theory that Vermeer, the only way that Vermeer could paint the way he painted was by using lenses and using some form of, cameras, if you like, but basically reflective mirrors that were reflecting from a set onto a background, and that Vermeer was copying that background. Now, I actually don't think that's true, but the fact is that Hockney looked into, what was the technology of lenses at that time. In the Netherlands, they were developing very precise elements of glass, and so there's a logic behind his argument. But again, it just expresses the fact that he just wanted to understand all aspects of art, past and present. I was fortunate, of course, to meet him and to interview him, and he was very gracious. Was already a little elderly, was already a little deaf, but again, his enthusiasm for art, his encouragement for us as a filmmaker and as a filmmaking team was there. And the fact that he gave us access to his works and to his time. I have to, of course, thank Tim Marlowe, who was the interviewee on that day, the interviewer on that day. Tim, who now is the esteemed director of the Design Museum, was a great interviewer and also knew David, and they got along very well. That obviously helped. But it was a privilege to have met him. He was very nice. Some have argued that we have just seen the death of the most famous artist on the planet. Living artist, perhaps, maybe, who can tell? But he's certainly, I think, the greatest British artist of the last century, in my opinion. And as I say, to fully understand him, you have to understand that he was always a Yorkshireman, and he always looked back to his Yorkshire roots. And I think anybody who wants to understand David Hockney should go to some of those locations where he created those artworks in 2012, for example, or go right back, go earlier. Places like Bridlington and so on, Bradford. And of course, Saltaire is a wonderful place to visit. So a man of Yorkshire, a great artist, and he'll be sadly missed. But in his absence, please do enjoy the film from exhibition on screen about the great David Hockney. Thank you.